You've seen already with all of the lessons that if you follow a simple procedure, step-by-step procedure, that even painting water in watercolour doesn't at all have to be the mental monster that it is for many people. We're going to use just two yellows, the raw sienna and the lemon yellow, and the two blues, ultramarine blue and phthalo blue. And we'll also bring in some white gouache when we want to pick up some of the very white light foam areas here that it would be really impossible to paint round using conventional watercolour techniques. Now I've drawn a line with the ruler about 1.25 inches or about 2 or 3 centimetres from the top of the page. It doesn't really matter, it just gives us a fair amount of space to put this main focal point of the wave in view and leave us some room for the water to get itself up on the beach. I'm going to just put a few streaks of ultramarine blue in the top of the sky and just a tiny hint of raw sienna thinned well down, just to give a nice light atmosphere at the horizon. Right, now I'm just putting a piece of masking tape across the horizon, obviously after the sky has thoroughly dried. The one thing you don't want to do is to allow the paint, when you paint, to creep under the masking tape. Now you can see from this picture here, there's a fairly dark blue-grey, almost like an azure blue, in the background of the sea, but here we get to a very pale translucent blue-green, and there's some little streaks here of very pale blue, and the same here in the foreground. So although we've only got two blues, we're going to mix and match them in this background area. We're going to keep it fairly dark like this, and that'll add emphasis to the main wave when we come to paint it. So I'm going to do one confident stroke across the paint like that, and then back again. I'm quite happy for some of these little flecks, particularly as we start coming forward, to appear, because it gives an absolutely ideal impression of waves breaking just a little bit further out into the water. I'll just start adding a little bit of ultramarine blue just to give a little bit of variety. Right, I've just added a little bit of raw sienna to change the colour yet again. That's given a nice darker colour. I can always go back into this as well. This will dry a lot lighter. I'm going back into this with some phthalo blue and raw sienna added. Again, it gives a whole variety of colours, and I'm just going to generally drag that along the top line of the wave like that. All the time I'm concentrating on trying to keep that line absolutely horizontal. Right, now while this is still slightly damp, I'm just going into some of those white areas, or just below some of the white areas, with a little bit of darker colour. And what that does is create a very natural and convincing wave shadow. Do you see the way that's enhancing the base of the wave, or the top of the wave rather, with the darker colour? What we're going to create is the eye of the wave, if you like. It's this much thinner, more translucent area of water where it's just started to curl over here and collapse, but it hasn't got the thickness or the depth of water behind it that this area has here. And you can see there's quite a distinct translucent glow through this area as opposed to this area. Right, now I've made a thin wash of phthalo blue and lemon yellow, quite watery as you can see, and that's going to form the centre, the eye of the wave. But I've also made a couple of other washes of ultramarine blue and phthalo blue on their own, which I'll bring in as we move further away from the eye of the wave and out towards the fringes. Now I've got a good amount of that greeny blue mix that I've made for the centre of the wave, and I'm going to make sure that the brush strokes replicate the direction of the wave, the way it's actually flowing and about to curl over. So it's almost like the letter C, a whole series of strokes shaped like the letter C. Bring that round, see, like that letter C, and in doing so we're also leaving some little hit and miss marks, which I'll leave for now because they're quite useful as little bits of foam. Now you can see it's getting a little bit stronger and darker as we get away from the eye of the wave, and I'll start now bringing in a little bit of ultramarine blue, a little bit of phthalo blue now as we get towards the edge of the picture. We've got some ragged strokes here, just a hint of the odd hint of dark blue gives a little bit of variation, quite nice variation, and especially down here as well, because this part's curling over, so it's going to put a little bit of shadow on this part of, or these parts of the waves here, like that. Now I've just got a slightly darker mix here where I've mixed the two blues together, but I've dragged in some raw sienna. But you can see the way those strokes are now helping to form the direction of the waves.